Today we're going to look at drawing a locker cabinet together. And now this is very different from some of the other things we've done in Woods class. For one, it's going to be an all melamine project, meaning there's going to be no real wood on it. And the second is, instead of using dados, rabbits, or biscuits like we may have used in the past, we're going to be using these pre-glued dowels to put it together. So this project is not actually going to use any liquid glue. We're going to use water and these pre-glued dowels to assemble this project, and it will have a very commercial locker room feel, and it'll be very durable. This the melamine, we're going to use black melamine this particular quarter, but we could do just about any color in the future. Will be pretty straightforward. To get to the Sketchup app, there's going to be a link somewhere on the page. This class happens to be advanced manufacturing, and the Canvas page is still being built, but there'll be something that says log into Sketchup app here. When we log into the Sketchup app, make sure you sign in with Google. That's going to be an option. And then you want to choose the template that is just inches. I'm going to pull up one that's already all done. So we have this to reference. And I want to talk about a few different options that we are going to do in this project that we haven't done before. The idea of this project is this is very similar to how something would be mass produced in a factory. And I want you guys to understand that there's a little bit of a difference in how we've been doing things in the early Woods classes to now this advanced manufacturing class, where we need to be able to crank through things, assemble it, and get it out the door. So this project is going to have two fixed shelves, one down here and one right here. Now the idea here is this is a little cubby. Maybe you throw your shoes in there or something like that, but this shelf isn't going to move. There's also a top shelf that's exactly the same size that isn't going to move. And then there'll be one adjustable shelf, and we've got these line bores that'll make this shelf adjustable. So this one can go anywhere we want to in the project. Notice the adjustable shelf is a little bit shallower, and if we get a good view, and I'm not sure that I will, you'll see that it's a little bit narrower, so there's some room to slide. A couple things you're going to notice, though, is when I pull this side out, we've got dowel holes here, 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 and then up near the top, we've also got dowel holes. And then on the ends of these boards, I haven't drawn them in Sketchup because we have no way of cutting them out. We're going to use the machine called the horizontal boring machine that's going to be automatically set up to drill holes in the end here so that these dowels can slide into those holes. So let's start. I'm just going to move this back so we have a completed model to look at. Whenever we want to start drawing, I like starting drawing with the sides of a project. They typically are the most complicated. They've got all the line bore holes and these holes for the dados, or these holes not for the dados, for the dowels. So to get started here, a refresher on SketchUp, if it's been a while since you've used it or you haven't used the app version, is always use a mouse. The mouse is super helpful. If I scroll with that middle wheel on the mouse, I zoom in and out, and if I click that middle wheel, I pan. And those are two commands that we'll use all the time in SketchUp. The other thing is we keep getting new apps or new versions of the SketchUp app released, which is awesome. All the tools are here, and we can toggle up and down on these tools. And if there's a tool that we want that we can't find, we push these three dots here, and we get to all the other tools that should be fairly familiar in SketchUp. So I'm going to start with the tape measure tool. Now mine is recently used, so it's over here, but yours may be on this window. And I'm just going to come off of the green axis to a certain point and come off the red axis on a certain point. I just want to have a corner to start with. We're going to be using 3/4 inch material to build these sides. So 3/4 inch material, I'm going to take my tape measure tool, I'm going to click here and pull over. It says 8 1/4. That's fine, 8 1/4. Remember, the very next step that I have to do, I can't click anything on the model. I need to type in point, and I click to move my picture. So I'm going to hit Control Z to get rid of it, or I can just delete it. And grab the tape measure tool again, pull it over. It says 5 1/8. That's fine. I want 0.75. The depth of this project, I believe, is going to be 11 1/2 or 12, but I'm just going to double check what this one was. 11 1/2 inches. So I am going to go from here back 11.5, and that's going to be the dimensions of my bottom. So now these dashed lines, these guidelines aren't permanent. I'm going to hit a rectangle here. Now it's possible if you hit Control, it does different things. So if you're trying to do this and it's more like drawing from the middle, hit Control again on your keyboard and it will come back to normal, and place that rectangle. So now you can see those lines are dark. That's a permanently placed line. Now we got to get the height of this. And the height of this, I'm going to click on these three dots to get the dimension tool. I've played with the heights of this so many times to try to get two of these to fit in a sheet of plywood, so we're not wasting any. So I can't remember what I had for our final height. 38 inches. So now if I want to pull this up, I pull it up, I let go, and I type in 38, and that goes up 38 inches. Now we only have to draw one side because we'll just copy it and bring it over to the other side, but we've got quite a bit of drawing to do on here before we do that. So the first thing we want to get is the dowel placement. So the dowels are going to be up, let's see if I can remember where I put this, 9 inches. So from the bottom of my side to the center of the dowel on the fixed shelf is going to be 9 inches. So I come here, I type in 9, enter, and I want the dowel holes to be in 1.5 inches from each side. So then I click on the edge, 1.5, enter, click on the edge, type in 1.5, enter. That's going to be the center. Now I'm also going to, while I have all these lines on here, do the holes for the bottom. My bottom shelf is 3/4 of an inch thick, and I want my dowel holes, the center of them, to be halfway on that bottom shelf. So I'm going to come here, click to place it, and then type 0.375, which is 3/8 of an inch. That's halfway on a 3/4 inch board. So from the bottom edge to the center of those dowel holes is 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to do the same thing up on the top. I'm going to come down, and it will start snapping to 3/8 of an inch. And now I can start drawing my circles for my dowel holes. So I don't see the circle tool here. I'll hit the 3 dots, the circle tool. I'm going to zoom in, so I'm making sure that I start at that intersection. Now the bottom right corner, it says radius. The dowels that we're using are 3/8 in diameter. So if they're 3/8 in diameter, the radius of that is 3/16. So I haven't clicked to place that circle yet. I can. I'll click right here. And the next thing I do, I don't click any boxes. I type 3-16, and you'll see in the bottom right corner, the radius of 3/16 will pop up, and I hit enter. Come over here and do the same thing. 3-16. Those are in. Now I realize I just about made a big mistake. I'm going to come here and I'm going to delete this and this. And it wouldn't have been a huge mistake, but I didn't put the rabbit in the back of my project yet, and I need to do that. So to do the rabbit, tape measure tool. I'm going to make a 3/4 inch rabbit because I'm going to use a 3/4 inch piece. We're just going to cut this all out of the same piece. There's no face frame. So we need to have a heavier duty back than we're used to. So we're doing a 3/4 inch rabbit. What that means is I'm going to push this bad boy in 3/8 of an inch deep. The rabbit is always half the depth of the cabinet. So I start the push, I let go, and then I type. You can see it come in the bottom right corner, 3/8 of an inch. Now the reason I had to stop is I want those holes to be 1.5 inches from the end of the shelf, and I had forgotten the rabbit, so that hole would have been 3/4 of a, it would only have been 3/4 from the edge of the shelf, and that would have been a problem. So now from the rabbit, I'm going to put another guideline, 1.5 inches in, and I can come back to drawing my circles. 3/16, enter. I've got these ones to do down here as well. 3/16. Oh, I hit a button I shouldn't have. I'm just going to undo that. Control Z is undo. 3/16. 3/16. 3/16. So I've got all of those holes in. I'm going to clean up this drawing a little bit and get rid of some of these guidelines because I think it gets so muddy sometimes with all these guidelines. You'll notice that you can either click on the guideline or you can drag through the guideline and it gets rid of them. And I'm just going to get rid of all of my guidelines. So I've got a nice clean looking side right now. In olden days, I used to get the push-pull tool and push these in. These holes are eventually going to be a ½ inch deep. But I don't need to do that because when we bring this over to VCarve, VCarve is a two-dimensional tool. We don't actually need to have that hole have any depth. So I can just leave this not pushed in and it'll be just fine. Last thing I want to do is get these line bores in. And these are a little bit time consuming, but it's going to go quicker than you think. So these line bores, we're going to use some more guidelines. So I'm going to go from the edge of my board in 2 inches. From the start of the rabbet in 2 inches. Notice that didn't line up with those holes, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. So we're going to have those line bores come in 2 inches, and I'm going to start at the top, and we're just going to place a line bore every 2 inches. You can certainly put them closer together. An industry standard is more like 1 inch or 1.25 inches. It just takes so long when we have our CNC router drilling every one of those holes. I put them every 2 inches. It's a little spread out, but it's okay. So I'm going to come down 2 inches, down 2 inches, down 2 inches. It takes time to do this, but it's so much better than having to do it with a drill. And some of you may be able to figure out a faster way to do it. I just haven't yet. And we don't need to get much closer because we don't need to be so close to that fixed shelf. We're not going to put little thimbles on there or something like that. And then we're just going to come back up here to the circles. So these circles, again, when I click on this, we see it's a radius. We want these to be 5mm holes. So the radius is going to be 2.5. But since we're doing millimeters in an inches drawing, we have to type in 2.5 mm for each of these. And I know that's going to take a little bit of time, but you'll be okay. I just paused the recording while I drew in the rest of those holes. So we've got holes now on all these intersection points. And again, I want to get rid of all these guidelines so that we're not having so much clutter on the drawing. And I can just click and pull up and it will get rid of all of those guidelines. Now we've got the work done on the one side. So we can add the other side to it and just copy and mirror it. I got a little crazy deleting guidelines. I'm going to put a couple of guidelines back in. I'm going to put one here, just snap it there. And I'm going to zoom in to get this on the center and double click so I know exactly where that intersection point is. And I'm going to double check the size of this. I think it's 11.5. Yeah, it's 11.5. So from the inside of my piece, oops, I'm going to come over 11.5 inches wide, and that is going to be where the inside of my next side is. Before I do any modifications to this side, I want to make it a component. This is probably the most important thing to remember when doing something that's going to be cut out on the CNC router. So I'm going to come back here and get the pointer tool. I'm going to triple click on this until the whole thing turns blue. Make sure all of it turns blue. Right click, say make a component, and I'm going to call this locker side. Oh, and I guess I called it locker side on this one, so I had to call it locker side 1. Say OK. Now, with this still highlighted, you'll notice if I click someplace else and click this now, the whole thing highlights blue, which is exactly what we want to have happen. So that locks it in. I can't come in here and just modify a single point, a single hole, a single rabbet without actually unlocking the component. So this is now kind of set. I want to copy this and bring it over here. To copy it, I'm going to select it blue first, hit the move tool. Now, when I hit the move tool, if I just pick this up and move it, it's going to move. I don't want to do that. But if I hit Control, so Control with the move tool selected, you'll notice now my move tool has a little plus. And that means whatever I click on is going to actually make a copy of it. So I'm going to click down here in the corner, and this is to the inside, just like that. So now there's 11.5 inches of space from here to here. The only problem is it's an actual copy of this side. It's backwards. We need to flip it. So to flip it, I'm going to click on it, come up here, and this tool changed. I have troubles finding it sometimes. It's called flip. There it is. And I can click. We want to flip on the red axis, so I just click the red axis. You see how it mirrors that sucker in there? So now those are facing each other and they're exactly right. Now I've got to put my shelves in. So to do a shelf, keep in mind these are, whatever I do to this one happens to this one. But since they're both components, if I draw on top of them, they won't fuse together. Let me show you what I mean. So I grab this tape measure tool. My bottom shelf is 0.75 inches thick. I'm going to draw a rectangle and start from the spot here, go to there. So the shelf's going to take up that whole space. And now when I grab my push-pull tool, I'm going to go here and just snap it to the inside of that. Now these are not connected. If I look here, we can see that I can click on this and it's very different than this. So I want to double or triple click on this, and I'm going to say make component because I want this to be a component. We'll call it locker shelf. And now these are all separate pieces. Nothing has fused together. Okay, now I want to add one of these shelves. Now this is going to be the trickiest part. I hope this hovers, it snaps to the center. And it's really not that critical because we just need it. So I just kind of drew a line from the center of that circle out. This is where I'm going to have dowels eventually. And I'm going to use my guidelines. Know that that's the center of my shelf. So I have, my shelf is 3/4 thick. So I'm going to go up 3/8 and down 3/8. And then I'm going to get rid of this line before I forget to. Now I'm going to pull that same trick. Grab the move tool, hit control, and I know right where to snap that shelf. And I'm going to do it one more time. Control, and bring it all the way up to the top. Now I have those 3 fixed shelves in my project, and I'm going to again get rid of those guidelines. And whatever I do to one of the shelves, I do to all of them. So let's just say I screwed something up. If I bring this out and I say edit component, if I make this sucker bigger, it makes those bigger as well. But I don't want to do that, so I'm going to let it go right. Control Z to undo it back to where it was before. So we're getting really close to being done with the V-carve portion of this drawing. Next step is I'm going to draw my back on. Now my back is going to be the same 3/4 inch melamine that the rest of this is. So I'm going to come here, grab a rectangle, start inside the rabbit, come all the way down, finish inside the rabbit, and then use push-pull to pull that out so it's 3/4 thick. Triple click on the back, make it a component called locker back. Now every time I click on one of these pieces, I just get each individual component. They're not fused together. I can take these apart if I want to and move and see what's in there. If I didn't make them components, they would all be stuck together. 2 more pieces that we have to draw. The next one is going to be a top. So to draw the top, I'm going to start here, go to back here. So it doesn't look like there's a piece there, but there is. I can pull it up 0.75 inches thick. Now it looks kind of silly if there's not a little bit of overhang. So I can come here and I'm going to give it a 0.25 overhang here. We'll give it a 0.25 in the front. It's a little overhang, but in commercial casework you don't often see great big overhangs. Now if we were going to put a door on the front, we need to really overhang that more, but we're not. We just need something simple to cover up all the joinery on the top. Remember to triple click, make component, locker top, okay. And then the last thing I want to do is make an adjustable shelf. Now instead of reinventing or having to start from scratch, what I'm going to do is that same copy trick. So I hit the move tool, hold down control, pull this one up. Now I'm going to come back and select the pointer tool, click on just this shelf and say make unique. When I say make unique, now whatever I do to this shelf isn't going to happen to the rest of them. If you don't make it unique, you're going to have problems with that. So I'm going to come here, say edit component, and I want to push it in 0.25 because adjustable shelves don't come all the way flush with the front. And the other thing I need to do is to allow this to move freely is I'm going to just sneak it out of here a little bit, come back, say edit component again, come to the edge, push it in 0.125, enter, click anywhere to deselect that, and then just push it back in here. Now it's okay if this model doesn't look perfect. I can see I need to push it back just a hair. I'm not really concerned about that. All I'm concerned is that these things are the right sizes. So I'm actually going to delete this one so I don't accidentally have something the wrong size. But this is the finished locker. This locker is all done and ready to go to VCarve. And you can verify that everything is a component. I usually like to do that by clicking on all the parts once and make sure that the whole thing gets selected blue, because everything's got to be a component for my next step in VCarve.